The Yu-Gi-Oh! Forbidden and Limited list inspires, excites, confuses, and sometimes infuriates. As Konami continually moves the puzzle pieces while attempting to assemble the best possible metagame and highest profit margins, sometimes they make some pretty big mistakes. We all know, of course, Konami is far from infallible, and with the TCG recently receiving a highly controversial ban list, I thought now would be the perfect time to cover some of their other biggest and most controversial blunders. Some of these moves age horribly, didn't fix problems, or were downright ridiculous. There's only two rules here. Rule 1, to qualify, it has to be something that actually happened. So for instance, not banning Mystic Mine or Firewall Dragon for years won't qualify.
Also, no Mystic Mine! No Mystic Mine! Wait, where's Mystic Mine? There's no Mystic Mine. There's no Mystic Mine. I hate this. I hate this. I'm starting to hate this.
Rule number 2, this is of course TCG only, so anything that happened exclusively on the OCG list, like Divine Sword Phoenix Blade being banned for instance, also won't qualify. Welcome to another episode of Yu-Gi-Oh! Banlist History, and today we'll be covering the biggest TCG banlist mistakes. Just for the record, unlike the other entries in this series, this is fully opinionated, so don't bite my head off if you don't agree with something on this. This isn't your typical Sunday history lesson with Cap G, but with everyone wanting more from our most recent list, I think we're gonna go ahead and make a ban list exception. January 2015, Unbanning Snatch Steel.
That's a powerful monster you have there. So I think I'll take it with my spell card, Snatch Steel. Right?
Don't be fooled by Change of Heart currently being at limited status and seeing little competitive play. Cards that let you take your opponent's monsters are still very powerful and were even more so 7 years ago when this happened. While Snatch Steel's second unbanning didn't feel completely out of nowhere, as Konami had unbanned 2 DM era cards and Regeki and Magician of Faith in the year prior, it definitely felt like the most risky and aggressive. Snatch Steel was immediately shoved in meta decks during the time and was a great way to answer opposing boss monsters, make your opponent use resources on their own cards, and particularly shined in decks with high damage ceilings like Blind Second Shadows and Cleafort. Arguably the most annoying element was how powerful the card was in simplified game states and top deck wars, where letting you keep your opponent's monster in exchange for 1,000 life points felt like a ridiculously uneven trade. Just like in 2006, Snatch Steel would spin just a single format legal before Konami realized how much havoc the card was causing.
Is this going to be a Snatch Steel situation? Is this going to be a throwback to 2015 or whatever when they unbanned Snatch Steel for like that one format when Klee and Shadal were around, and then they're like, whoops, we fucked up and we're going to ban it again?
September 2018, limiting a Assault Core. 2018 is often referred to as the worst year in competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! History, and with stuff like this going on, it's easy to see why. Firewall Dragon was a complete and utter menace for most of the time the card was legal. It got other cards hit in its place, and some, like Grand Soul the Elemental Lord, even had to be errated, and that's after they banned it. It was clear that Konami was dancing around the FTK enabling elephant in the room, whether that be because of the Yu-Gi-Oh! VRAINS anime series or some other unexplained reason. However, this was by far the most egregious move done in the name of saving Private Firewall. In a shocking twist that absolutely no one saw coming, Konami actually limited a random ABC piece to address yet another FTK that had arisen. This was beyond laughable because they essentially crucified a rogue tier deck at best to keep the single most powerful card in the entire game legal. ABC fans were justifiably livid over this decision. Thankfully, it was reversed 3 months later on the next update when Firewall Dragon was finally banned. September 2008, September 2013, and October 2019, unlimiting Destiny Hero Malicious. Many in the community say that D-Hero Malicious is the only card in the entire game of Yu-Gi-Oh! That should be on the semi-limited section of the ban list. And history says they may just be right. Malicious was of course an absolute force when first released in the Duelist Pack Aster. Despite its low stats and high level, it proved to have insane synergy with basically everything and was soon seen as one of the best competitive cards in the game. When Konami rightfully semi-limited it a couple formats later, it definitely made sense. However, when they put it back at 3 for what would become Teledad format, it caused chaos, just like before. For what Malicious lacks in stats, it definitely makes up for in utility, as it's arguably the strongest fodder card ever printed. It's been clear in evidence every time this card has been at unlimited status. Synchro summons, tributing, link climbing, grave manipulation, fusion plays, etc, etc. Malicious has done all that and everything in between. The real power behind this card is in the fact that if you can access one copy, you can usually access them all, and in a single turn with no restrictions nonetheless. It goes without saying, but every time Konami has let this guy out at 3, it eventually proves to be OP once again. March 2012, the entire ban list. If you know your Yu-Gi-Oh history, you'll know that this is without a doubt the most infamous ban list ever. When duelists are threatening to quit the game to a level that the head of the entire TCG for the United States, Kevin Tourd, has to write an article publicly addressing the ban list and its moves, it's pretty clear you royally effed up. As unbelievable as that sounds, that's exactly what happened a decade ago with this specific list. I've actually already made a video on this subject already, which I'm currently working on a remaster for, so wait for that video if you want to get the full story and all the details. But long story short, as the beginning of Zexal was kicking off, and it became clear by the YCS results that the Zexal decks of Windup, Insector, and the player-created Dino Rabbits were about to take over, Konami released a ban list where nearly all the hardest hits were solely aimed at Plant Synchro. This list reeked of monetary motivation, and duelists picked up on it instantly. The level of backlash from the community is still something I haven't seen to this day. Needless to say, this is the type of stuff that people end up getting fired for. February 2022, Unbanning Fairy Tale Snow. Over the last couple of years, Konami has made a very commendable and legitimate effort to unban cards they believe no longer present clear and evident danger to a healthy metagame. On the February 2022 ban list, this was on full display as Lunalight Tiger, Astrograph Sorcerer, and Destrudo all returned alongside Snow. 3 of these cards wouldn't have much of an impact on the competitive meta. And then there was Fairy Tale Snow. Yeah, she instantly saw meta play. Duelists immediately realized that Snow's disruption, combined with the fact that she is not a hard once per turn effect, made her every bit as powerful as when she was first banned in 2018. While a card like Brilliant Fusion was no longer around to dump her from the deck into the graveyard, players of course found new ways like Shooting Riser Dragon, Branded Fusion, and Curious the Lightsworn Dominion. Konami went out on a limb with this one, and it just didn't work out. Snow was absurdly powerful in the 2 formats she was legal in, and rebanned on the October 2022 ban list. However, I would like to point out that players were calling for her to be banned again ASAP after seeing what she could do. August 2004, banning United We Stand. This is one of the moves so silly, it's actually pretty hard to explain. Equip spells that increase stats were far more popular and even considered to be pretty powerful during the DM era, but they weren't that damn powerful. Yes, in the earliest days, Axe of Despair was a meta card, and things got really crazy a couple of sets later with United We Stand and Mage Power, both of which could easily do over double what Axe did, which actually led to both cards being moved to limited status. However, this was just hysteria by Konami. United We Stand did give players the ability to potentially gain an absurd, especially by 2003 standards, 4,000 attack, but meeting those conditions was nearly impossible unless you specifically had Scapegoat, in which every monster on the field not equipped with United We Stand was not a real legitimate threat. If you had 5 real monsters on field, then you probably didn't need the United to cheese your opponent to begin with. This card was banned because of janky combos that almost never came up. Bad move, Konami. April 2020 through May 2022, every single card hit so that Crystron House of Firebrax could remain legal. I still find everything relating to Hulk's existence in the TCG to just be straight up wild. Despite knowing how absurd, broken, and problematic this card would be, duelists still openly look forward to the card's arrival in the TCG. To no one's surprise, the card started doing broken stuff the second we were allowed to play it. Much like Firewall Dragon, Konami danced around this issue for years. First, they attempted to make us believe that tuner monsters like Jet Synchron and Mecha Phantom Beast Lion were the issues. When that didn't solve the problem, they took aim at other extra deck cards like Mecha Phantom Beast Auroradon and Shooting Riser Dragon. Of course, the culprit was Hulk the entire time, and the card's evolution from being a link climbing extraordinaire to a card used for its tag out combos with Baron de Fleur and Artifact Scythe definitely proved that. July 2021, banning Zodiac Trident the second time. Zodiac is one of the most powerful archetypes in Yu-Gi-Oh! History. Most would argue it actually reached the fabled Tier 0 status. When Konami torched the archetype on the September 2017 list, most didn't shed a tear and felt that it was fully justified and deserved. The OCG actually went harder as they banned Trident, Barrage, and Broad Bull for good measure. This led to some raising an eyebrow upon Trident's return in April 2020. However, at that time, the card was no longer meta-defining and was just seen as a good piece of removal. In pure Zodiac variants, Trident would soon even play second fiddle to Divine Arsenal AA Zeus. So when Konami put her on ice for the second time, players were just confused. No one was calling for her to be banned, and she wasn't seen as a problem within the metagame. This was a move that most felt wasn't just bad as it completely missed the real issues, but many wished that Konami would just straight up reverse. April 2019, banning the Phantom Knights Rank Up Magic launch. To be honest, Konami has kind of done this exact thing twice before, so I could have just as easily put Rank Up Magic Argent Chaos Force here. Anyways, these are textbook examples of Konami scapegoating a rank up spell in favor of banning a potentially format warping Exceed monster that is of course far too strong for its own good. In this case, that monster was Outer Entity Azathoth, who could lock out an opposing player's monster effects for an entire turn, and do so without activating as an effect itself. Launch was the card used in very early builds of the Orcus deck used to summon him, so Konami figured it must have been the problem, right? Wrong, as TCG duelists would soon learn what OCG players discovered during their Pepe format. Summoning Azathoth during your own turn to cut off your opponent's hand traps and on-field monster effects was pretty broken too. Who would have guessed? This strategy was used in Luna Lights, Danger FTKs, and a myriad of other decks, leading to Konami finally identifying the real issue. And finally, March 2017, unbanning Imperial Order. This is the craziest case of Konami making a mistake by unbanning a card, and that's because of IO's errata. Usually erratas are so bad they make the card completely unplayable and honestly make Konami look completely incompetent. See Brain Control and Sinister Serpent, there are many more examples. However, with Imperial Order, they went the strange route of not reducing the card's power in the slightest, but instead attempting to balance that power with a higher life point cost. If you know anything about Yu-Gi-Oh, you know that this plan was destined for failure from the start, because life point costs in this game do not matter. It took a little while, but eventually players realized how insane Imperial Order could be, especially when going first, as it could shut off powerful board-breaking spell cards, as well as the ones people played as just part of their engines. This led to Imperial Order being the first ever errated card in Yu-Gi-Oh history being rebanned, which is actually like the definition of irony. Anyways, those are my picks, and I wonder what you guys thought. Leave it in the comment section below. Remember, if you enjoyed the video, or more importantly, you learned something, give the video a very big thumbs up. Check out the other videos that are probably on your screen right now. And of course, thank you for watching as always.
Mystic Mind, 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 Mystic Mind. Red Reboot. Good. Actually fucking good.